Hi everyone, this is Luke Wilson. I'm going to be talking about The Shadow #1 in my inaugural Pulp review. The Living Shadow was the very first pulp novel featuring the Shadow, written by Walter B. Gibson, who would write uh, the majority of the Shadow stories. It was originally submitted for publication as Murder in the Next Room, and it was its name was then changed to Living Shadow and was released April 1st, 1931. Um, and so this is the very first Shadow story, and as such, it's also the first appearance of a couple of the Shadow's agents, namely Harry Vincent and Claude Fellows. Harry Vincent is pretty much the star of the story. He appears in um, pretty much the whole thing. There are a few chapters here and there featuring some of the criminals, the Shadow himself on some very stealth-like missions. Um, uh, but Harry is definitely the main character, and he's sort of uh, I would say he's probably the audience surrogate. He's someone who is coming into this cold, doesn't know the Shadow, doesn't know what exactly is going on. He doesn't even know the Shadow's real identity, and that isn't even revealed in this issue. Um, but let me give you a little plot here. Harry Vincent, uh, he was thinking of committing suicide, jumping off a bridge, but the Shadow recruited him, and it's kind of unsure, kind of uncertain if the Shadow knew if Harry had special abilities or if he just saw someone in need and figured that he could use him as one of his agents. But regardless, there's the whole story revolves around these jewels that um, a millionaire by the name of Jeffrey Laylow. Uh, he is killed, and the contents of his safe are emptied out, and um, they're trying to figure out where these priceless jewels are. You have a lot of different suspects in this. You have a Chinatown crime boss. I'm not totally sure. He sort of operates his own tea shop. His name is Wang Fu. And uh, his role is a little shady. We're not totally sure what he does, but we have various other characters like Ezekiel Bingham. You also have Jenks, who is his butler, I believe. Um, but basically, the Shadow wants to make sure that these gems, these jewels don't fall in the wrong hands. And there's a lot of code breaking. There's some um, very cool elements at play here. And the Shadow is shown to be really adept at code breaking, at writing and transmitting these coded messages to Claude Fellows, who sort of operates as an insurance salesman, although that probably could be a front as his for his real activities on the behalf of the Shadow. Um, I know that there's a character called Burbank who does not appear in this issue, but he's supposedly the one who helps transmit these messages. But for now, Claude Fellows does that, and he sort of gives Harry these various missions that once Harry completes, he goes back to Claude, and Claude gives him another mission to complete that is presumably dreamt up by the Shadow, who has a real interest in keeping these jewels from being sold. So um, there's some very interesting things here with in terms of the Shadow's skill at getting in and out of very very tight spots. He's always blending with the shadows, eavesdropping on some criminals. Uh, at one point, he opens a safe, and the night watchman doesn't even though he's just outside. He basically cracks the code of where the jewels are kept. and the Night Watchman is none the wiser. So some very interesting things here. We don't really see a lot of the Shadow, um, but he definitely has a great effect at sort of knowing everything that's going to happen and sort of being one step ahead of what Harry Vincent does, and is able to sort of guide him to various points in the story, in addition to actually rescuing Harry on a number of occasions when Harry looks to be pretty far gone. But yeah, the code breaking, which I mentioned, was a really cool element. The various messages that were transmitted by radio or by telephone call were interesting as well. That had emphasis on certain words that then Harry copied down the words that were emphasized, and that spelled out the message. Probably the best element was the disappearing ink, which I think if you read through it a couple times, it would automatically start disappearing. It was very very strange. I'm not totally sure how that worked, but then again, this is a work of fiction. But disappearing ink sounds very very interesting, and that way, if Harry or Claude or even the Shadow himself were caught, the disappearing ink would leave the page as blank as it was before the message was even written. So it was very very interesting to see that, and hopefully they'll have even more cool spycraft, other sorts of elements like that. I thought it was very interesting. And the story itself was a page turner that had quite a few surprises, quite a few times when people were unmasked or various disguises were made known, and I think that's really a mark of a good story. Not only does it keep you interested, but it also throws a lot of different surprises. And so I felt that it was a really solid start to the Shadow Pulps. I would give it a 5 out of 5. Really great story. I highly recommend that you check it out. Been printed quite a few times since it was first released in pulp format. I know that there's some paperback versions from the 60s or 70s, but you can also get it from Sanctum Books. I think it's volume 47. Those reprints haven't necessarily been in order, but if you want to pick up that story, that's volume 47, along with another novel that came later as well, called The Black Hush, which I've yet to read. So anyway, that was my first review. I'm going to probably I'm debating which pulp to read next. I'm going to try and keep these sequential as much as possible, but I don't have as many pulps as I like to get a good amount of reviews in the can, as it were. But I'm thinking about doing the Avenger #1, Justice Inc. or Justice Incorporated. I know even less about the Avenger than I do about the Shadow, and I'm not a Shadow expert by any means. So look for the Avenger #1. That's going to be coming probably next week, or maybe even sooner. I think what'll work best is if I can do maybe at least one, but hopefully 2 reviews every week of all the pulps that I have right now. Then again, that may slow down the reviews later on into 2014 if I run out of pulps to read and I'm ordering more pulp reprints that are on the way. So we'll see about that. But yeah, the Avenger #1 will be next week, and feel free to leave any comments or leave your own video response if you'd like to review The Living Shadow yourself. And feel free to subscribe to the channel if you're interested in more pulps, and I will see you next week.